Good evening. My name is Ray Dwyer, and this is Dr. Joe Dispenza's Meditation and Book Discussion Group. Tonight, we are covering the book, You Are the Placebo, first chapter, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the preface. It's an interesting story that builds the possibility that his work gives. He goes into a little bit of detail that is, well, chapter one is titled, Is It Possible? You ever wondered, is this really possible? Well, I hope by the end of tonight, you'll at least understand in you that, yes, it's possible. Once you accept that as a premise, everything else is just study and practice. Okay? Starting from page XV, as in Roman numeral 15, the preface. Dr. Joe's titled this Waking Up. He wrote, I never planned on doing this. The work I'm currently involved in as a speaker, author, and research sort of found me. In order for some of us to wake up, we sometimes need a wake-up call. That's me. Dr. Joe has said that people change for one of two reasons. Trauma knocked you off your high horse, forced you to change. I was told I had phase 4 metastatic malignant melanoma. Anybody who has any history in cancer knows that that's a killer status. I was told to get my affairs in order. This was in 2009. I was told to get my affairs in order, and I had 3 to 5 years to live. I soon discovered that I had broken 6 vertebrae. He was in a car accident. He was on a marathon, and a car accident hit him. 6 vertebrae. I had compression fractures in the thorax 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And the lumbar 1, ranging from the shoulders to the kidneys. The vertebrae was stacked and compressed. The 8th thorax vertebrae, the top segment that I broke, was more than 60% collapsed. We're not talking about just a little damage. He busted up his back. As I were in bed, as if I were in a bad dream gone rogue, I woke up the next morning with a host of neurological symptoms, including severe different types of pain, varying from degrees of numbness, tingling, to some loss of feeling in my legs, and sobering difficulties in controlling my movements. We're talking he was severely hurt. I'm going to shorten this a little bit, but I really recommend that you take a close read of this preface. After he refused the surgery that they wanted to give him, which was put an iron brace, a steel brace of some kind in his back, and permanently make him in a wheelchair with permanent pain and drugs, he said, no, I'm going to try something else. I was transferred to a hospital in LA, La Jolla, close to my home, where I received 2 additional options, including one of the leading orthopedic surgeons. Not surprisingly, both doctors agreed that I should have the Harrington rod surgery. That's that thing where they put a bar in your back and tie pins to it just to keep your back from moving so you don't cut off your nerves and end your life. Maybe I was just young and bold at that time in my life, but I decided against the medical model and the expert recommendation. I believed that there is an intelligence, an invisible consciousness within each of us, that the giver of life. It supports, maintains, protects, and heals us every moment. It creates almost 100 trillion specialized cells. It keeps our hearts beating a little more than 100,000 times per day, and it can organize hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions. He believed that that wasn't just matter, that there was an intelligence doing this. Maybe I could take my attention off my external world and begin to go within and connect with it, developing a relationship with it. I've met some guys that have relationships with their cars. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a real being to being connection. And he had decided that he was going to do the work to get a relationship with that consciousness. I find that rather amazing. The chiropractors I knew were interesting people, but none of them talk like that. I decided two things. First, every day I would put all my conscious attention on the intelligence within me and give it a plan, a template, a vision with very specific orders, and then I would surrender my healing to this greater mind that has unlimited power, allowing it to do the healing for me. And second, I wouldn't let any thought slip by my awareness that I didn't want to experience. Sounds easy, right? No, that is darn hard to do. Let me give you some details as I pick that little thing apart. I decided two things. I would put all my conscious attention on this intelligence within me and give it a plan. Let's take the first part. I was going to put all my conscious attention on this consciousness. Steve and I just had a heart-to-heart conversation about how hard that is to do. You try to focus, you try to go into that darkness and dwell on that greater space and put your heart on the intelligence within that space. In that conversation I just had with Steve, we never talked about that first step, actually tuning in to that intelligence. We just talked about putting our awareness on space. Why didn't we talk about it? Because it's really hard to find when you're raised in an Newtonian world and you're not even sure if you're willing to accept that it's there, right? First, every day I would put all my conscious attention on this intelligence within me. We do this with our daily meditations as we practice putting our space here and here and here. Many times as we go through Dr. Joe's meditations, we talk about heart-mind coherence as we tune our two hearts together and we move into that eighth center and we move into that space within space. Right? That's putting your mind into the domain of that intelligent field. Second thing that he said so gently, I would give it a plan. When you tell yourself, I'm trying to get well, I'm trying to get well, I want to be healthy, do you have a plan of action? Or are you just speaking to the darkness? Yeah. Are you thinking Newtonian? That's right. Dr. Joe was not thinking Newtonian because he just got through thinking of talking to that infinite intelligence. Now he's discussing with that infinite intelligence a plan. Most people say, well, I give the plan over the intelligence. That's not what Dr. Joe says to do. He says, I gave that intelligence a plan, a template. This is what I'm looking at, a vision with very specific orders. And then I would surrender. Then when he got all this together, he would turn it over and say, this is what I want. Because of that personal relationship we mentioned on the other side, when I do that, I generally say, this is what I want, Father, or this is what I want, Mother, depending on the nature of the conversation. I would surrender my healings to this greater mind that has unlimited power, allowing it to do the healing. This is my plan of my perfect self, my perfected body. Then I wouldn't let any thoughts slip my awareness that I wouldn't want to experience. When you're in that creative frequency, you're creating. I mean, you are calling energy to you. And if you wander, that other stuff is getting created too. So you have to hold that attentive awareness during this time for a period. Sounds easy, right? Well, if you were listening to Steve and I's conversation, neither one of us said it was easy. No, I didn't say it was easy. Either did he. You with me? Further down. Against the advice of my medical team, I left the hospital in the ambulance that brought me to a home of two close friends where I stayed for the next 3 months to focus on my healing. I was on a mission. Have you ever met a man who is really on a mission? The best thing to do is just get out of his way because he's coming through. I decided that I would begin every day reconstructing my spine vertebrae by vertebrae, and I would show this consciousness, if it was paying attention to my efforts, what I wanted. Now, did you hear that sentence? That was interesting to me. And I would show. How do you show the infinite potential what you want? You don't show it by going, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. They don't show jack to anybody. You don't show it by thumbing through a catalog that says that. How do you show it? You show it by getting into that eighth space, just like what we said, creating that image in our mind and sharing the experience, not just an image, but the experience of the healing. You with me? And I would show this consciousness if it was paying attention. Now, that if it was paying attention, I find quite special. Because here he is doing this, and he's not always confident, and he's being honest enough to it to actually write in the book. He's not always confident, so he put in a little secret honesty. I'm going to show it if he's paying attention to my efforts, what I wanted. So if you get into meditation and you have one of those days when you're doing everything you can to offer your light into that darkness, and you wonder, is it paying attention? Here it is. He did it, wondering if it's paying attention. He wrote it in the book. So, should you continue if it's paying attention? Yes. Oh, for sure you should. Just as in any relationship, see this? He's reinforcing the idea. He's moved into that space and he's formed a heart, not mind, a heart relationship with this intelligence. Just as in any relationship we have with anybody, we all know when someone is present or not with us. When you tune out, you're the one that did it. They are paying attention to us. That's because consciousness is awareness. Awareness is paying attention. Paying attention is being present and noticing. Steve said that. Do you remember him mentioning that? So for 2 to 3 hours, sometimes twice a day, not 2 to 3 hours of the day, 2 to 3 hours twice to sometimes 3 times a day, I went in and began creating a picture of my intended results. Let's say you have an injury. Do you know that body part so well you can create an image, a picture of it? He did. That's your model. When I talk about this later in the book, that's your model. This is the model I took for my healings. I studied this and I said, if he did it this way and it worked, then I am going to walk in those footprints. And I did it. And my healings were phenomenal. We'll go into that later. Of course, I became aware of how unconscious and unfocused I was. Once again, he's being honest with you. I don't walk on water, guys. I'm just a guy who really is passionate about this stuff. And that gets me a lot of grace. You with me? It's ironic. I realized back then that when crisis of traumas occur, we spend too much time and energy thinking about what we don't want to think about. Isn't that an odd thing? We have a trauma in our life, and instead of thinking of solutions, it's the human nature to think of the trauma again and again and again and again. And it's hard to get our mind off that trauma so that we can build something in our life. In the middle of my meditations on creating a life I wanted with a fully healed spine, I would all of a sudden become aware that I'd been unconsciously thinking about what the surgeons had said to me and da 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 da. If it happened to Dr. Joe, it may happen to you. So what? While I was step by step mentally rehearsing walking again, I would catch myself imagining that would be like to live the rest of my life in a wheelchair. Why am I reading it to you this way? Because I want to normalize your struggle. Once you realize that, okay, you're just like everybody else, the details are different. So what? You struggle, so does everybody else. Yeah, there's some people more talented than you, but there's also people that digging out of a deeper hole than you did. So what? If you compare up, down, sideways, you lose. Doesn't matter. So don't compare. Just know that your struggle is well within the human nature. Finally, after 6 weeks of battling myself with making the effort to be present with this consciousness, I was able to make it through my inward reconstruction process without having to stop and start. It took him 6 weeks of solid, deliberate, knowledgeable practice to feel like he connected. It's not easy to do what we're asking you to learn to do. I remember the day I did it for the first time. It was like hitting a tennis ball in the sweet spot. Any sports players here? Baseball players, kickers, tennis, and you get that ball and you hit it just right, not just a little bit off, but I mean it. That bat hits that baseball and you can feel it in your hands and you just launch that baby. It feels good. Same with a tennis ball. You're swinging, you're knocking them up, and every now and then you catch it dead center and put just the right spin on it, and it launches. It feels good, right? Did he do it soon? No, but he did it, and he did it because he was persistent, consistent, passionate. It was in that moment that I began to correlate what I was doing inside of me to create it with the change of what was taking place outside of me in my body. There's another interesting. Outside of me was the inside of his body. Did you catch that? What was happening inside of me, he's referring to his consciousness. What was happening outside of me, he's referring to the inside of his body. Now I had quite a bit of time in my hands, so I started thinking about what I would be like to be in the sunset. I don't know what I was doing at the time, but now I do. I was actually starting to think about all those future potentials that exist in the quantum field, and then I was emotionally embracing each of them. Did you catch that? He has now moved out of the physics of healing his body into the spirit energy of healing his consciousness and his spirit. What I was learning is one of the main principles of quantum physics, that mind and matter are not separate elements, that our consciousness and unconscious thoughts and feelings are the very blueprints that control our destiny. The persistence, conviction, and focus to manifest any potential future lies within the human mind and within the mind of the infinite potentials of the quantum. The name of chapter 1 is It Possible? Is it possible? Let me read this sentence again. The persistence, conviction, and focus to manifest any potential future lies within the human mind and within the mind of the infinite potential and within the human potential and the quantum field. Both of these minds must work together in order to bring about any future reality and potential that already exist. That already exist. In this spectrum of infinity, there's little you can imagine that doesn't already exist as a potential. Then here it is. Why does it work? Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you. I realize that in that way, we are all divine creators. We are all divine creators. Independent of race, gender, culture, social status, education, religious belief, or past mistakes. Oh, I'm such a sinner. I'm going to forget that. You are a divine expression. You are. I felt really blessed for the first time in my life. Wow. Is it possible? You are already and always have been a divine creator. Our object in these lessons is to change your education. I hope you get where I'm going. At 9.5 weeks after the accident, I got up and walked back into my life. 9.5 weeks. Oh my goodness. But that wasn't the end of the adventure. Not surprisingly, I couldn't go back to my life as the same self. I was changed in many ways. You think? He had danced with the divine and healed his unhealable back. And in 9 weeks, he's walking back into his life. Debbie, I could talk about it, but you wouldn't like my answer. All right, I'm moving a couple pages here. I'm over on page XXII. I guess that's Roman numeral 23. There is a book he mentions here, Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind, was published in 2007. After Evolve Your Brain had been out for a while, people started asking me, how do you do it? Remember Steve asking, well, how do you do it? How do you change? How do you create the life you want? If you're a heady kind of person, I know this book isn't for everybody. Dr. Joe's truly first book, not Breaking the Habit, but his real first book, is Evolve Your Brain. I got it. It's a tough read. There is no meditation in it. It's about the science of mind and body. It will slow you down, but it's the why of everything that Dr. Joe does. You want a challenge? Read that book. But that book will solve the cynicism, the cynical mind that goes blah, 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 just another so-called mystic. Dr. Joe is not just another so-called mystic. He is a scientist. Besides being a doctor and a chiropractor, after he got healed, he went back and got 2 more science degrees. He really did. He is closer to be calling a scientist than a chiropractic doctor. I kept thinking that I was done, that I taught all I could teach, but people kept asking for more. So I learned more myself and then refined the presentation and meditation. And this is when he started teaching the first couple lessons of the, before he even started the week long. And then he started talking about, uh, but now also we're signaling new genes and new ways right there during the meditation in real time. Then you start studying, learning about epigenetics. It was in the early 2013s I offered a brand new type of event that shot our workshops to a whole new level. For this event, which was in Arizona, I invited a team of researchers, including neuroscientists, technicians, and quantum physicists who specialize in instruments, to join me for a 4-day workshop. 4 days. During this amazing event, we were finally able to capture objective changes in the scientific realm of measurement of documented subjects changing in real life time with scientific instruments. They were able to show when you change your mind, when you change your energy, you heal. You change your energy and your body changes. That's how it works. Here was my idea of developing that workshop. I wanted to give people scientific information and then provide them with the necessary instruction on how to apply that information so that they could achieve heightened degrees of personal transformation. That's why it works. Breaking the habit of being yourself, we learned change, and we learned energy centers, and we learned to call new energy into us, and we learned and practice how to move into that eighth center. And we did that. Why? So that we could tune our old energy into this new energy and change energetically so that we would epigenetically change. Epigenetics means above genes. We will talk about that word a lot in this book. And I discovered that if I could teach people the scientific model of transformation, I could help them understand the science of possibility, combine it with the latest information of neuroscience, neural indoctrination, epigenetics, and psychoneural immunology, give them the right kind of instruction, and provide an opportunity to apply the information, then they could experience a transformation. And he doesn't mean a transformation a month from now, 6 months. No, I mean right there in the middle of the conference. For those who have never been to one of Dr. Joe's conference, it is a mind-changing event. There is always someone who just blows their circuits loose and changes and heals right then, right there, right in front of people. Mind-blowing. Does everybody get free? No. Not everybody's able to let go. But for those who do, it's quite a mind bender for those around them. And with that information, they could have another transformation, and on it goes as people begin to close the gap between who they think they are and who they really are. And they really are divine creators, making it easier for them to keep doing it. I call this concept information to transformation. That's the preface. That's not the study. That is to try to get you to see the potential of this work. Why isn't it taught us earlier in our lives? Because there are many people who have a vested interest in keeping us controlled. Politics. And most politics have a root in religion. And our Western religion is rooted in a small city in Italy called Rome. I don't care whether you call yourself Catholic or not. That's the history. That's the root. I'm just going through the messages here. The name of the meditation we just did is changing beliefs and perception, and changing beliefs and perceptions. So before I go into chapter 1, is it possible? I thought this would be a good time to just have a chat with people. That's some people aren't allowing themselves to let go. Yeah, they're so deeply programmed. Remember what Dr. Joe says, 85, 90% of what our decisions are were made for us as children. We didn't decide who we were programmed. I'm here to help you free that. If I, in some small way, helps you get a little bit freer so that you can start choosing the life you want, that's what I'm rooting for. I'm not here to determine what you do. I've been doing this for 5 years, and there are people that just have gone, they go through my studies and they get freer and they become advanced students and they just go off in all kinds of different directions. I celebrate that. I don't think, no, that's cool. That's why I'm doing it. I love it. I hope you can get free of the cultures that define who you think you are. I said they defined who you think you are, not you. You are the divine creator. It says people like to blame others. Take responsibility for your life. But few people know what that means and how to do that. Okay, I'm responsible for messing up my life. Now what? Well, that now what is what we're going to talk about a lot throughout this book. Anybody want to raise their hand and talk to me about something and what they're doing and about Dr. Joe's journey? Ada, thank you for raising your hand.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah, my question is just to be clear, which I know, I think it started before the meditation. So the idea really is the first step idea that whatever concern, whatever it would be, is just like, as opposed to trying to worry or figure it out yourself, it's just like hand that over like to the higher power. Is am I understanding that?
It's more of a job of letting go and putting your consciousness on something else than turning it over. Um, to me, the image of turning it over means I've got my attention on this and I'm going to give it. My suggestion is quit paying attention to it and get busy doing that. Just let go of it. But that very oversimplifies the challenge of letting go of something. I'm a guy who had nightmares all my life. I am certified military PTSD. You ever heard the expression, you're just certified? I go, well, yeah. I really am. I get a little check in the mail every month that validates that. I do. I'm not going to tell them that I got healed doing Dr. Joe's work. That's up to them. I'm not worried about it. So it's more a job of learning to let go of something than to turn it over. I saw a funny show the other day, and this little girl was saying she had nightmares, and her counselor says, "Well, okay, I want you to think of bunnies, and I want you to tell yourself, I won't think of bunnies, I won't think of bunnies, I won't think of bunnies, I won't," and keep saying that till you go to sleep. And so the next day, they asked the little girl, says, "Did you think of monsters?" "No, I couldn't get bunnies out of my head." And they looked at her like, and she goes, "Oh, bunnies. I like bunnies." It's more a matter of letting go than turning something over. What are you
Okay.
letting go? What are you putting your awareness on? That's part of it. Part of it is learning to let go. When you have an obsession, an obsessive mindset, that is the definition of PTSD. You don't have to be a military guy to have PTSD. You have PTSD from a car accident, from family abuse, from work environment abuse, from getting robbed on the highway. There's a lot of ways to be traumatized in a way that it echoes in your mind. So I am not saying I'm somehow blessed because I got PTSD. Yeah. It is a human thing. But let me tell you something. PTSD is a good thing. And the first time I heard that, I almost jumped out of my shoes. What do you mean? Because PTSD is a normal survival instinct to help you jump higher, run faster, fight harder, do a little bit more than you would have done otherwise. It's a survival thing. Just like stress is a survival thing, it's just more intense. All we have to do is learn not to make it chronic. Stress is not a killer. People say stress kills. No, it don't. Stress is what's needed. Stress is needed for your very life. It's chronic stress that kills. When you can't let go of stress and when you're always current, that's what kills, not stress. Stress is survival tools.
Yeah.
It's not about what you hold on to, it's about letting go. And how you let go is a word I call forgiveness. That's my word. Dr. Joe doesn't use that word, but I like the word, so I say it. It's about releasing. What does it take to release what your mind is holding on to?
Can I ask a question about that? Let's
Sure.
say it's okay. Let's say it's not even, all the past things that may have caused PTSD or anything, but let's say it's just current things you may have currently going on. Um, so can you kind of release it, but still
Okay, now
think
let's
about it?
talk about that a second. Everybody has, in our Western society, we have a scattered, busy mind. We are bombarded 24/7 with suggestions, consumerism, issues, news, stories. Eh, right? Okay,
Yep.
how do we tune that out? First of all, we are in the habit of having a noisy mind. So, first of all, it's habit. That habit is not only emotional, it's so embedded on us, it's body memory. And a lot of times, body memory is more tenacious to stop than mental memory. You can occupy your mind by just getting busy, but your body wants to go back and talk about that thing that happened and that you're worried about and da 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 da. So I touched on this with a conversation with Steve earlier, and I call it attentive awareness. Not only do you become aware of something, you put your full attentiveness on it. Let's say you're a sportsman. Let's take the easy one first. Let's say you're a runner and you've been running track for a while, but you want to change from running a couple hundred yards to a few miles now. It's a different mindset. At a couple hundred yards, you're done in a couple minutes and you can go take a break and let your mind come back to you. But if you're going to run for 5 or 10 miles, you're going to be at it for a while. And if you have your mind busy, you're going to have adrenaline stuff like that. And you're going to use up energy that you need to run and you won't make it. You learn to be attentive in what you're occupied with and you tune in, and the word that sports people use is flow. There was a time in my young life when I was running 8, 10 miles. I wasn't a massive 20-mile runner and I wasn't a racer. I just get out there and jog. And I noticed that once I started reaching my 6 mile mark, I started changing and I got comfortable at it. So I'd be headed for my 8 mile mark, and somewhere around 3 miles, I would check out of my body, and it'd be like I was coasting on a bicycle. I would disconnect from my body. I was in flow. I used the term I was riding my run. I talked to a dancer once, and She was a professional dancer, stage dancer, not the just pop dance, but real dancer. She says for the first weeks, she studied and practiced, studying very heady. And then somewhere along the way, she found herself checking out of the dance, and she would just tune to the music, and her body would flow, and the mechanical movements became fluid movements, and she would flow with the music. I worked in engineering field before, and engineers learned to tune in to their work, and they would check out and they would go into a state of flow doing their engineering work. That's how you turn off the busy mind. You get attentive in your space, and the body and the consciousness tunes out, and you go into that state of flow. You with me? This is not woo-woo. This is a human experience. When we practice the same meditation again and again and again, some of us get bored and change, so it's always new. You're missing an opportunity. Pick a meditation you like and do it again and again and again until it becomes music like that dancer and you can flow in it. Soon, that music will be so self-hypnotic that you will step out of the work of the meditation and just move into the space, and Dr. Joe's voice will just fade into the background. That's how you do it. You become so attentive, you move into flow, and then you move into space. Oh, yeah, Debbie, you're very right. There is a degree of unlearning. We have not only been miseducated, we have been educated how to learn incorrectly. We have to unlearn learning. There's a reason why the United States is the lowest in the industrial West in education. Shame on us for allowing that to happen to our children. I'm sorry, I stepped into a realm I didn't mean to go. Let's back out of that conversation real quick before I get in trouble. Back to what we're talking about. So that's how you do it. You give your mind a valuable chore and you work it until you can move into flow. It's human. Don't think this is woo-woo. That will make it a challenge for you. This is a human thing. There's a reason why Dr. Joe can take this to every continent on the planet except Antarctica. And I don't know if there's very many students down there, and teach this because it's teachable to every kind of human being, every culture, every religion, every age, everything, because it's human. Okay? Give yourself a chance to unlearn your education. I think we're going to do some really interesting stuff in this book. We will unveil some pretty interesting things. Okay, let's go into chapter 1. Let me see what this chat says. There is a degree of unlearning and relearning involved in this. You think? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Is it possible? This whole chapter 1 are testimonies, but they're so interesting. I hope you review them. I hope you review that preface because that shows the potential, and it's worth rereading. A guy named San Lond, a retired shoe salesman living outside of St. Louis in the early 1970s, began to have difficulty swallowing. He eventually went to see a doctor who discovered that Lond had metastatic episodic cancer. Metastatic means it's starting to spread. In those days, metastatic episodic cancer was considered incurable. No one had ever survived it. It was death sentence. Cancer. That was my diagnosis. I was told in September of 2009 I had full malignant metastatic melanoma as well as all the other skin cancers. I had 3 to 5 years, and so I got my will together, medical stuff, all that stuff, and I kept saying no to the darkness, and so I survived. I used to be angry at the doctors for constantly telling my wife and I that I was dying. But it took me a while in hindsight to understand why they were saying that. They were saying that because everybody else I met in that cancer ward with phase 4 melanoma cancer died. I am the anomaly. Why didn't I die? That's what we're reading about in this book. While Lund had high glucose levels due to diabetes and the rest of his blood chemistry was fairly normal except for the slight higher levels of enzymes, which was expected because someone with liver cancer, further medical examinations showed nothing more amiss. He's got epicidal cancer, he's got liver cancer. I lost everything I'd ever cared for, my heart. When did this start? It started by a trauma. He lost his wife. And from that on, he started losing his life. Lund didn't die of epicidal cancer, nor did he die of liver cancer. He also didn't die of a mild case of pneumonia he had when he was admitted to the hospital. He died quite simply because everybody in his immediate environment thought he was dying. He was told he was going to die for a few years, and so he did. You know, sometimes being a stubborn pain kind of guy like I was, I guess I still am a little bit, pays off. Because that doctor would tell me I was dying, and I would look at him like, not me. And I had no reason in the world to say that because I didn't meet Dr. Joe for 8 years from the time it started. I just shook my head and said, not me. You give into the darkness will win. But he died. It says here, he had no symptom that would say why he died. He just died because he thought he was supposed to. What? Page 5. Can you overdose on a placebo? 26-year-old graduate student, Fred Mason, he's a graduate student. He's a smart guy. Became depressed when his girlfriend broke up with him. He saw an ad for a clinical trial for a new antidepressant medication and decided to enroll. He had a bout of depression 4 years previously and was time his doctors prescribed antidepressants. But Mason had been forced to stop the medication when he became excessively drowsy and developed numbness. So he was reacting to the medication they were giving. So he stopped. After he had been in the study for about a month, he decided to call his ex-girlfriend. The two of them argued on the phone, and after Mason hung up, he impulsively grabbed his bottle of pills from the trial and swallowed all 29 that was left in the container. And he overdosed. He had the symptoms of overdose. Writhing, he told his neighbor he had been terribly mistaken, that he had taken all his pills and didn't really want to die when he asked the neighbors to take him to the hospital. He was writhing in sickness because he overdosed on these pills. He told the doctor that it was an experimental antidepressant drug that was part of a trial. And he thought he was dying and his body was shutting down. 4 hours later, after the results of the lab test came back totally normal, the physician who had been part of the clinical drug trial arrived. His tests come back, all his bloods are normal, and yet he is dying because he thinks he's supposed to. Checking the code on the label of Mason's empty jar bottle, the researcher looked into the records of the trial. He announced that Mason had actually been taking a placebo, that he had swallowed a container of no drugs at all. Miraculously, Mason's blood pressure and pulse returned to normal within a few minutes. Minutes, not even hours. Once he was convinced that he took a placebo, he went, "Oh, what did I do?" His excuse went away and his body returned to normal. He had been convinced he was dying. Is someone convincing you to be sick, to be depressed, to be stressed out? Mason had fallen victim to the nocebo, no harmless substance, thanks to a strong expectation. He expected it, and so he created it. You are a divine creator. What are you creating in your life? Really? Page 7. Chronic depression. Magically lifts. Janice Schofield, 46-year-old interior designer living in California, had suffered with depression since she was a teenager. She had never sought help with the condition until she saw a newspaper ad, and the Neuropsychiatric Institute was looking for volunteer subjects for a drug trial to test a new antidepressant. Schofield arrived in the institute and was accepted in the trial. Schofield agreed to return every week for the entire 8 weeks of the study. On each occasion, she would answer the questions on how she was feeling, and several times she sat through another EEG. Not long after she started taking her pills, Schofield began feeling dramatically better for the first time in her life. Do you understand where this is going? Finally, at the end of an 8-week study, one of the researchers revealed the shocking truth. Schofield, who was no longer suicidal and felt like a new person after taking the pills, had actually been in the placebo group. She had expected to feel good, and so she did. As she sat there in shock, the doctor insisted that just because she hadn't been getting any real medication, it doesn't mean that she hadn't been imagining her depression or her improvements. It only meant that whatever had made her feel better wasn't due to the medicine, the pxxxi. And she wasn't the only one. The study results soon showed that 38% of the placebo patients felt better. 38% of the people who were given salt sugar tablets got as well as the medication. Who has talked you into being sick? Time for you to change your mind. Thus, the placebo effort was not only altering Schofield's mind, but was also bringing about real physical changes in her biology. She didn't just imagine she changed, she physiologically changed. It wasn't her imagination that she changed. Her body changed. You change your energy and your body changes. That's the rule. It's not your imagination you're feeling better. You are better. A miracle cure. Now you see it, now you don't. Page 9. 1957, UCLA psychiatrist Bruno Klopfer published an article in the peer-reviewed journal telling the story of a man he referred to as Mr. Right, who had advanced lymphoma, a cancer of the lymph glands. A man had a huge tumor, as big as an orange, in his neck groin. He lay in his bed for weeks, febrile, gasping for air, completely bedridden. His doctor, Phillips, had given up hope, although Wright himself had not. I like that. The patient was still saying, "No, no, I'm going to get better." When Wright found out that the hospital where he was being treated and researched, certain centers uh, extracted some house blood, stuff like that, Wright unrelentingly badgered the doctor for days until the physician agreed to give him some of the new remedy. Even though Wright couldn't officially be part of the trial, which required patterns to have at least 3 months life expectancy. So this guy was dying like soon. Wright received his injection of carbazone on a Friday, and by Monday he was walking around laughing and joking with his nurses, acting pretty much like a new man. Dr. Wright reported that the tumors had melted like snowballs in a hot stove. Within 3 days, the tumors were half their original size. 10 more days, Wright was sent home. He was dying with orange-sized tumors, and in 10 days, he's sent home. Now, this is where it's fun. 2 months later, the media reported that the 10 trials showed that the carbazone medicine turned out to be dud. And guess what happened? This guy found out that the medicine was a dud, so he got tumors back. Then later on, the doctor says, okay, we got a correction. Now we're going to give you the super duper medicine. And this will take, and so he took the super duper medicine and the tumors went away again. Then Mr. Wright found out again that the super duper medicine was fraudulent and it just didn't work. And so he got cancer again, and this time he died. What did he die of? He died because he thought he should die. Nikita, that's right. He thought he should die. Yet he healed himself twice. Think about that. Who is convincing you you can't? Who has convinced you? They might not be in your life now. This may go back to your childhood. Who has convinced you you can't? Page 11, knee surgery that never happened. In 1996, orthopedic surgeon Bruce Moseley, then of the Baylor College of Medicine, one of the Houston's leading experts in orthopedic sports medicine, published a trial study based on the experience with 10 volunteers. Knee surgery. Anybody here with achy knees? He had 10 knee surgeries. 5, they actually cut in and did this particular knee surgery on these men. And 5, they just cut and restitched it back up and only told them they did the surgeries. You got it? After the surgery, all 10 of the patients in the study reported greater mobility and less pain. Not some of them, all 10. 5 with the actual surgery and 5 for the pretend surgery. In fact, the men who received the pretend surgery did just as well as those who received the debridement or lavage surgery. Why? Because they believed they should have healed, and so they did. What do you believe? Do you have an ailment in your body? Do you believe you can't heal it? Well, you're right. I'm here to try to teach you, try to help you, try to convince you you can. They said that they could now perform all the everyday activities that they hadn't been able to do. Fascinated by the result, Dr. Moseley published another study in 2002 involving 108 patients who were followed for 2 years after their surgeries. Again, all 3 groups improved. What have you convinced yourself of? Could it be possible that these patients got better simply because they had faith and belief in their healing powers of surgeon in hospital and even in the gleaming modern operating room itself? Yeah, that was their placebo. Are you getting this picture? Do you understand how important it is to ask yourself, what is it I'm believing that makes me sick this way? Where did I learn this? Yeah. Where did I learn this? My doctors tried to convince me. Oh, they did. Every time I walked through the doors, they said, yeah, just okay, about 3 years, yes. You're right on track for this. I mean, they tried to track my death rate. And I'd sit there and just grit my teeth and go, no, not me. Was it easy? You know how hard it is for your wife, and my wife had to hear people tell her for years that I was dying. She had to live with that. Oh, it used to anger me, but I didn't know at that time that everybody else was dying. The whole, I don't know anybody that had full metastatic malignant melanoma with all the other skin cancers that came out clear. It ended. I don't know anybody else. Heart surgery that wasn't. In the late 50s, 1950s, two groups of researchers conducted a study comparing the then standard surgery for angina to a placebo. This was well before the coronary artery bypass. The surgery was extremely successful for the huge majority of patients who had it, although doctors had no solid proof that any new blood flow vessels were covered. What they were doing is they cut off, and it's kind of, could it be that somehow the patients who had received the sham surgery so believed that they got better that they actually did get better just by believing that they're going to get better through nothing more than holding that expectation for the best? And if that is possible, what does that say about the effects of our everyday thoughts, whether positive or negative? If you can will yourself to sickness, as some of these did, while others willed themselves to wellness, what are you doing? Get out of the middle, is my suggestion. Attitude is everything. I didn't know Dr. Joe's work those first 8 years, but I had one thing, and I still got a little bit of it. I had attitude. A wealth of research now exists to show that our attitude does indeed affect our health, including how long we live. I didn't write that, Dr. Joe did. In fact, Dr. Joe just wrote what he found in other research. For example, the Mayo Clinic published a study in 2002 that followed 447 people for more than 30 years, showing that optimists were healthier physically and mentally. An optimistic view aids your body's immune system. A pessimistic view restricts your body's immune system. It gets down to the very blood in your body. It's not just your mental grumpiness. You are healthier to the very blood vessels, to the immune system, to the white cells by being an optimist, happy person, with all the other circumstances in your life being the same, than if you were a grumpy, pessimistic, woe is me kind of person. Because as a grumpy person, you have a lower immune system, a lower digestive absorption system, and your biome of your gut doesn't work as effectively. Julie, glad you made it. I hope I was able to contribute a little bit. Research at Yale followed 660 people aged 50 and older for up to 23 years, discovering that those with positive attitudes about aging lived more than 7 years longer than those who don't. Just by having a positive attitude, you live longer and you live a better, happier life when you do. Ada, you're right. Just don't accept everything you're told. This study suggests that having the right attitude can work as well or better than eating a proper diet. Attitude is even more important than these clean diets. Why? What is the foundation? Let's make a statement like that. Because if you have a grumpy, closed down attitude, you're not absorbing the nutrition of your diet in the first place. Your biome is defeated and is not functioning also. Your immune system is lower, so you're more susceptible to flus and other allergies. Your allergy reaction will be more abrupt. Get your attitude up, and half of those things will go away, just that alone. And then you need to clean up your diet too. I'm not saying no to diet. Diet's a big deal for me. How is it that our everyday mindset, whether we're generating more joyful or loving or more hostile or negative, can help determine how long we live? Is it possible for us to change our current mindset? Yeah, that's why we're here, right? If so, could having a new mindset override the way our minds have been conditioning by the past experience? Absolutely. Choose. Or could expecting something negative to reoccur actually help to bring that about? Yeah. You ever seen somebody stand on the edge of a step or something and is so afraid of falling that he falls? You take somebody doing the same thing that's confident, and he can just walk across the 4-inch beam like it's just a sidewalk because his mind processes freely and he can just walk across this beam. Why? Because he's not afraid of falling, so he doesn't fall. You're afraid of being sick? Stop that. You are drawing to you what you fear. That's not woo woo. That's not even psychology. That is life. That is quantum. You put out an energy and you draw that energy to you. This chapter is titled, Is It Possible? My answer is yes. It is possible to think yourself dead. There's stories about it. It is possible to think yourself well. I am an example of that. Just ask me sometime, I'll tell you my story. It's crazy. You're talking to somebody who is not just a book reader. I did this. According to the National Cancer Institute, a condition called anticipatory nausea. When I got melanoma cancer, I spent a month every day, 5 days a week, every day, for 4 weeks, sitting in the cancer chair, plugged into a bottle. They had a pick here to make it easy for them to plug in. And I talked to people about showing up, and they were nauseated before they sit down in the chair. They were anticipating the nausea of the drug so much, they were nauseated before they sat down. Are you anticipating something so much that you are feeling the negative of it? Hey, look, it's going to rain. Let me tell you ahead of time. If you're wondering if it's going to rain, let me take the surprise one. Your life is going to have rain in it. Are you going to be miserable waiting for that day of rain, figuratively speaking? Or are you going to learn to play in the sunshine that it comes, as it comes, and prepare yourself for the days of rain that will come? This is a matter survival life. It will come. What are you going to do? How are you going to prepare yourself? Can thoughts of others affect you like your own? When you accept them. When you accept them. You can tell me your opinion of me years ago, and it would mess up my day. Let's say you had a rather derogatory opinion of me. It would mess up my day. Your opinion of me would affect me. If you tell me a derogatory opinion of me. Now I just smile and go, you don't know me. Because my story is so bizarre. You say something about that and you think that's me. I have no doubt that you don't know me because my story is wild. Yeah, if you let somebody else's energy in, it will affect you. Now, I'm a pretty protective husband. If somebody comes in my space that's threatening, will that energy affect me? Oh, yeah, I'll put on the bad dog real quick. I am not a pacifist. I just thought I'd let you know what you're dealing with. But if you get in my space and your heart's breaking and you just need somebody to love you for a few minutes, I'm going to show you a man who has learned how to love. That's also me. Okay? Digestive difficulties disappear. And the sentence that I underlined is on page 17. If it's true that learning new information that leads to a new 180-degree turnaround in what we believe about ourselves can absolutely actually make our symptoms disappear, what's going on in our bodies that's supporting this, that's making it happen? I kind of misread that sentence. Is it possible that learning new information can change your view of the symptoms in your body so much that your mind changes, and and that change of mind changes the symptoms in your body? Can that happen? Absolutely, yes. Change your mind, you change your life. That is not a figure of speech. When you truly change the information, when you choose to receive new information, your mind produces new neurons. Literal new webs are built in your brain. You literally change your brain. Old thoughts you cast away, and those nerves actually break away. You have changed your brain as well as your mind. And in doing that, you create new energy in your body. And in creating new energy in your body, you instruct your genes at the genetic level to release different hormones. And your body changes genetically by receiving by receiving, not just hearing, by receiving information and gaining the knowledge. You can change your body and therefore change the symptoms in your body. Page 18. It seems that merely expecting to get better unleashed some previously untapped power within the Parkinson patient that triggered the production of the dopamine, exactly what their bodies needed to get better. It seems that merely expecting to get better released the dopamine. This wasn't imagination. His body actually began to release dopamine so the Parkinson patient got better. Why? Because the person in this hurting body expected to. What are you expecting? Can you change your expectation? I'm hoping as we go through this book, as you look at yourself today, you're going, I'm just doing the best I can. I understand that. Maybe by the time we're done with this book, those expectations will change as you learn how to create your own ritual, your own placebo that instructs your body in such a way you will expect to get better. Is it possible? That's the name of this chapter. Next segment says, of deadly snakes Talks about preachers in the southeast United States that do the snake dancing and they get bit by snakes and they don't die. Why? Because they don't expect to. They expect to be bit and they expect to survive it. From the ancient Tibetans throughout the early Christian era, throughout history, there's been those who have learned to detox to such a way that even snake bites don't have the venom to kill. Why? The body knows how to detox even deadly snake bites if we know how to tell it to, if we know how to expect it to. And can the same rock solid belief that empowers the snake handlers and the firewalkers also go the other way, causing harm to ourselves and even die? Yeah, without ours having awareness that we're doing it. We don't know what we're doing. These programs that I mentioned, 85, 95%, these are subconscious. These are the things that rule our daily lives. This isn't easy. But where's your attitude? Where's your persistence? Where's your consistency? How you're gonna get tired of hearing me say this. How bad do you want it? If you call me, if we talk on the phone and you start acting like, well, I'd like this, I like to get better, but this, I'll hang up on you. It's not worth my time. It's just not worth my time because I know if you don't care, I can't care enough to overcome you not caring. I don't even mind that upsets some people when I say that. You've got to want it more than I do. This is your body that we're talking about. How bad do you want it? Do you want it bad enough to go to war against the darkness in your own mind? I've been told people don't like me using the word going to war or battle and stuff like that. I use those words because that is the intensity that it felt when I was doing it. Because I had hard darkness in me. I had a very toxic, ugly life before I found Dr. Joe. That's how come I was dying. My body said, enough of this. Victory over voodoo. Oh, this one's good. Last story. I'm on page 20. Oh, Kelly. See you next, what's the next 2 weeks from now, whenever that is. This man got voodooed. Yeah, that's the expression used. He was dealing with the voodoo witch doctor, and the doctor cursed him, and the guy received it, convinced him. He believed it, and he slowly got sick, and now he's dying in the hospital. And the doctors can't find anything wrong with him except his body is shutting down. And so this one doctor said, "Oh, it's voodoo. I know how to fix this." So the doctor had a nurse give him a shot that makes him throw up. And he comes in and he's throwing up in the bucket and he sneaks a lizard into the bucket and says, "Oh, you threw out this ugly lizard. You're healed. You're healed." And everybody goes, "Ah, I'm healed." And then after he sleeps 12 hours or something, he gets up, starts eating, and goes home the next day. What's the point of that? The point of that is, what do you believe? What do you believe is possible? I'm not saying you can do this overnight. I'm not saying to fake it. I'm saying get this into you one step at a time until you change. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. Some of you know me. Why I'm so passionate and why I'm so convinced in this. 2009, I was diagnosed with phase 4 metastatic malignant melanoma. I had spots in my body and all over my body. It was spring of 2018. I was told they were scheduling me for my 6th deep surgery. Many hundreds of freeze burns I've been through. Every 6 months I'd go in and they'd burn off, freeze burn the metastatic and basal cells. Every 6 months I'd come home looking like a walk through a bee's nest. God, some of those things hurt. So in 2019, I'm coming around. In 2018, March of 2000, I started studying Dr. Joe's work. I've read the books and did 3 meditations. The first, busting of the energy centers. As I mentioned to Steve, I tried to do body parts in space, and I went, space? What is space? I tried to do the water rising meditation, and I just couldn't get past drowning, the image of drowning. So for a year, I did the blessing of the energy centers. First 3, not the advanced ones, just again and again, 3 times a day, mostly. A lot of times 2 times a day. And I do it, look for something. I got no feedback for at least 6 months. I would sit in here and I would hear Dr. Joe's word, don't get up till you change. And I'm going, if I didn't get up till I changed, I'd starve to death in this chair because nothing's happening. And it didn't happen for months. Well, I thought, it's in hindsight that I learned that I was changing slowly, but I was changing internally. The clarity in me was slowly changing. It was somewhere around 6-8 months that I started getting lessons in my head, or I'd be doing the meditations and my eyes would just pop open because I would understand something that I didn't understand a moment before. And I mean, it was like lights coming on. I just knew that's what I would do. That's okay, I can do that. And I'd get so excited, I'd walk around my living room in circles trying to absorb the lesson. Back in that time, I had nobody to talk to. This was all on my own. Somewhere around the 10th to 11th month, that was March, so this is around December, I started becoming aware of my teachers and my guides. I had a feminine energy that I call my beloved, and I had a male energy I called my teacher. And I started becoming aware of their counsel. Now, I didn't say I was channeling anything. I just knew, and I'd get encouragement. I'd get little hints. I'd get little, oh, this is, little, that little angels on your shoulder type of thing. And so I was being encouraged greatly. But I'm still facing my 6th surgery. So just about the 12th month, March of 2019, I was sitting at this desk, and I'm approaching my 6th surgery. And again, I was going to go in for another freeze burning treatment for my tumors that I could see was forming on me again, for basal and squamous. And I'm sitting there just crying, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. And the world went away. I'm sitting in my chair, and the next thing I know, I'm on the floor next to my desk here, flopping around like a fish out of water, being electrocuted by divine energy. I was aware of my ears being wet from the tears flowing from my eyes, so I'd been unaware, and I had a few minutes of absolute mind-blowing, painful electricity flowing through me. And in that time, I learned 2 words. Surrender did not mean be defeated. It means let go to the deepest level. Give up who I think I am. Give it up. I am not this army vet, this survivalist, this tough guy. Give it up. So in the midst of me being electrocuted on the floor by divine energy, I gave it over to the divine. And the healing continued. And then it stopped. And I said, what? Give it up, Ray. Come on, you got to do it. And at that moment, I learned the next word, worthiness. I had to forgive. Wrong word. I had to give up my idea that I'm just a sinner, lost, needing salvation or something like that. I had to discover and accept I am already fully worthy. I am worthy. Why am I worthy? Because I am a divine expression. I am already a divine creator. I am already worthy to receive divine blessings. I am. And I just shouted, I am, into the darkness of my mind. And wow, did I get an explosion in me when I received my place in the kingdom. 2 weeks later, it happens that the surgery date was. They cut me open and woke me up and said, look at this. I'm telling you, they did. What? And I looked at it, and the wound was just like a gray mass of ugliness. I said, what is that? It says, that's your cancer surgery. I said, what? It was all gray because all the cancer in that section was already dead, not shrinking, not dying, dead. The whole pocket of cancer had died, and my body was absorbing the tissue. So they just scraped it clean and stitched me up. A couple months later, I went in for my annual cancer review, like I did for the last 10 years. 100% clear. No basal, no squamous, no melanoma. It was September of 2019, the 10th anniversary of my diagnosis, and I was given a full clear every year, every September since then. This is now 25, so I've got one coming up in a few months. I have been told I am clear of all skin cancer. Yes, you change your energy, your life changes. Now, how does that apply to this? Well, I was writing on high. So they were told me, when was the last time you got a colonoscopy? I'm an old guy. It's time to do things like that. So I did. And they woke me up in it and says, look at this. And I had a big wart looking thing on the side of my colon and a few others that followed it. So they did a full biopsy, MRI, and the whole 9 yards. I didn't, maybe had colon cancer. I had colon cancer. So they scheduled me for a colon extraction. They had planned on taking out the lower 4 inches or more of my colon and giving me a plastic bag for the rest of my life. Well, I cried for a week. Mr. Tough Guy just, every time I sat down and meditated, I cried. And then I decided to start, my little teacher, he wasn't little, he didn't like that. Then my teacher said, what are you doing? What? I said, didn't you learn anything? Yeah, show me. My teacher is kind of a male energy. Show me, tough guy. So I went, okay. So I studied what you're going to learn in this book. I created a placebo. And from March to June, in June, I went into surgery. The reason I say I went into surgery because they had documented diagnosis, documented pictures, documented MRIs. They didn't even review it. They gowned me, gassed me, and rolled me in. An hour or so later, hour and a half later, I came out of gas going, where's the pain? I was told there's going to be lots of pain. My wife had to chase down the surgeon because she didn't even want to come talk to me. And the surgeon told my wife, there was nothing there. What do you mean there's nothing? My wife said, what do you mean there's nothing there? We got pictures, MRIs, everything. I said, Mr. Dwyer, I'm the head of the internal medicine surgery department here. I went in as far as my instruments could go. There was nothing there. Tell your husband to go home, get dressed and go home. I have documents, if you want to back it. This is what my cancer records look like. Do I think this works? I live this stuff. I've got many more stories of this, but that's what applies to this course. When you learn what this says, you can change your life and heal. Stay with me as we go through this journey. I think it will be transformative. Yeah, miracles are possible. Okay, I'm open to discussion now. We're still in the recording, so let me know. Nobody wants to talk to me after that little preaching I just did?
Can I ask you a question, Ray?
Please do.
So, I understand about how you control the thoughts for your own healing and how can you stop when something negative is coming about yourself. But how do you deal with a loved one? I'm dealing right now with a person who's have mental issues. So he's not even aware. I cannot even expect him uh, to think, oh, I'm having these negative thoughts. You follow me? So
Yes.
how do you deal on your end? How would you deal with that? Because it's not really your health that you're trying to be optimist, that you're trying to stop any negative thought, but you're dealing with somebody else. And actually, it's my godson. So I'm very, for lack of a better word, attached to the outcome. But I'm trying to visualize him very healthy, trying to send him love, but inevitable comes to the moment where, negativity comes.
That conversation is very individualized, but I'll give you some general ideas. My first question is, can you answer this simple question? Where is your consciousness? And how big a space is it? The answer is like, huh? What do you mean, where is it? Yeah. That's why we practice what we practice, so that someone can ask me that question and I can answer where my consciousness is. My consciousness is normally, typically, about my body, but doesn't mean it have to be, because I practice this and practice this and practice this. So when you're dealing with, let's take it away from being a human, which is a little bit more heart painful, and say it's your pet. You can't talk to your pet. You can't teach your pet to meditate. What do you do to help your pet heal? Well, the first thing is always you love your pet and you give it peace in its spirit. Because, like we said before, if you're a pessimist, bad attitude, it's not going to penetrate that wall of fire. It just, first, they have to have peace. If your dog is growling and barking at you, how much energy can you give it to love it to calm it down? First thing you've got to do is calm down that pet, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
First they have to have a receiving spirit. They don't have to understand what you're doing. They just have to have a receiving spirit. Then you love them. In your love is your intent for them. In the love is a light that you communicate. Remember what Dr. Joe says. He has a plan, a vision in that love. And you rest with that pet, for instance, and you love them. And in your heart, in your head, in your mind, in your love is the plan of wellness for that pet. The pet don't know what you're doing. He just knows that you are loving it. The pets, dogs are cognitive enough to know that, oh, I'm just being loved. But they have to get past the if that human is so out that he's then you're not going to get through. I mean, just you might be powerful enough to strike lightning and do something profound, but that's beyond my ability to talk about. But if you can just get him to receive you loving him, in your love is the energy to change his energy. Now, whether it would change it enough to give the profound healing that you're dreaming of, wishing for, hoping for, that's a whole nother level. But that's the general idea. And you don't even have to be in the same room. He just has to be able to receive you, your love, your energy. In other words, if it is a member of your family that has never liked you before, don't expect you're going to walk in there and lay hands on him and heal him, because he's rejecting your energy outright. You with me?
I got it. Thank you so much.
Did that all make sense to you?
It does completely. And I've been doing it, but I was questioning it. So it's great. It's a great confirmation. Thank you.
You have to have the plan in your head. Don't go empty-headed. Plan. Have an ideal, ideal, an ideal in your love. Not just, okay, I want him good enough to walk around. No, if you're going to do this, you might as well go for the gold. Have an ideal of what that person is supposed to be, a plan, an image, of visions. Do you remember those words that I used with Dr. Joe for himself? Right? Have that in your love image. You don't have to. In fact, I suggest you don't say the words. Communicate through your love in your heart. Let it be a heart gift. If you say the words, he'll tell you no, and you've just been defeated. You with that?
Yes, thank you. He's on the other side of the country anyway, so I cannot, I'm doing, like you said, energetically, just visualizing him and visualizing him very healthy, very well.
Yeah, go to that page on the preface where Dr. Joe says what he did and make that your model. Worked for him. It worked for me. But I'll ask again, how bad do you want it? If you think you can do this as just some religious rite and you and you say 1,000 Hail Marys or something and you're going to get better, forget it. Go to the movies or something. But if you can get your heart screaming, make it stop, where you're shouting at heaven's gate, calling upon your right as divine creator, loving it into an earthquake and a volcano, seeing, feeling, experiencing, laying out the plan where he sows from this to this, and it's there. Read that paragraph until it becomes a model for you. That's how you do it.
I will. Thank you, Ray.
Right. As we go through this book, we'll discuss 4 elements of a placebo. It's the same thing that the doctor does when he gives you a pill. It's the same thing church does when you kneel before your sacred symbol and you light a candle, or before a statue and you say your prayers, or in an assembly and you go through your ritual. It's the same formula that you go before a government building and they swear you in, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. The same thing a soldier goes in where he puts his hand over his heart and he makes an oath. It's the same symbol again and again and again and again throughout his. Why? Because it's a very human thing to do, and it affects us to the very being of our body and our consciousness. 4 little steps. We do it all the time without being conscious of it. by the end of this book, I'm going to do my best to make you very conscious of it. I think I'm all done if no one else has anything to say. No one wants to talk to me? Man, I thought that was as passionate as I knew what to say. All right. Let me see. Let me give you June 22nd. I will see y'all. Stop recording. Good night, all. We'll end the recording and we'll begin again in June 22nd.